Hi, I'm Jenny Spinner, Chief Editor of Snack Food and Wholesale Bakery, and I'm here with Jared Drinkwater, who's CEO and co-founder of Low and Slow Snacks. Jared, thanks for joining us, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
So there's a lot of snack companies out, and there's a lot of snack companies offering things like, corn curls, corn chips, and tortilla chips. But Low and Slow Snacks has a bit of an innovative twist that I'm fascinated by. And after this interview, you might want to know more too. Jared, let's start off with talking about you, your career, and how the twisted path you took to get here.
Yeah, so I have been in Dallas, Texas for the past 20 years, moved out here to work for Frito-Lay and brand marketing. Spent about 7 years at Frito-Lay, then left to go to Yum Brands, where I ran marketing for the Pizza Hut business based here in Dallas. Wonderful company. Left Yum in 2017 and took a job as the CMO of a sports company called BSN Sports, the largest supplier of team sports equipment and apparel in the country. And my whole career has really been a combination of sports and food, which are my two passions outside of my family. I have to raise my hand because the lights just went off, but now we're back.
That's fun.
In our shared office suite. And so it was at BSN Sports where I kind of had this idea. And being in Texas for 20 years, I became kind of a student of Texas barbecue and loved the craft and smoke stuff on the weekends. And I had this insight that why do barbecue snacks all kind of relate to barbecue sauce? You see a ramekin of sauce on most bags of barbecue chips. Why hasn't anyone smoked chips before, which is kind of the authentic way to do barbecue anything, especially in Texas? And so I threw a bag of corn chips in my smoker one day with some rub that I had in the pantry, and I took them out, shared them with my family and friends. People gobbled them up. And I thought to myself, maybe there's an idea here. And so what I did from there was take it to a good friend of mine, Mike Pahalski. He had retired from Frito-Lay, spent 22 years there, most recently running R&D for the Frito-Lay division. And he opened the bag and immediately kind of smelled the smoke and said, wow, he's like, I was trying to nail aroma on snack food for 15 plus years and you did it. And so from there, we kind of embarked on a 3.5-year journey to figure out how we could actually smoke chips at scale, which led us to the launch of Low and Slow Snacks about 2.5 months ago at retail here in Texas.
That's pretty interesting. And as somebody that literally just came back from Dallas, Texas, barbecue country, there's nothing like smoked barbecue. You can cook your stuff on the grill. You can add liquid smoke to fake it, but there is something about that real smoky meat that if there's a smoker in house when you leave the restaurant and you smell your fingers and I smell like smoke, there's nothing like it. And you've managed to capture that with your snacks. So could you talk a little bit more, instead of listening to me talk about smoke, could you tell me a little bit about the difference between using seasonings and things like liquid smoke to emulate that smoky barbecue flavor and the use of actual smoke? You touched upon that a little bit, but feel free to go a little bit more in depth on that.
Yeah, well, I think to back up for a minute, you nailed it. There's something magical about walking into a barbecue joint in Texas or anywhere else in the country and or opening the door to your backyard smoker and you kind of get that waft of smoke. And when I think about the power of barbecue culture, it's why I got so excited about building this brand. I mean, where else can you go really in the world where you see people waiting in line for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours for something and they're all smiling and laughing and connecting? And life moves so fast that I think what barbecue does is kind of slow it down a little bit. And so what we're trying to do is bottle up or bag up the essence of barbecue in a bag, because we know that you don't have time to wait in line for 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours every time you want to go get great barbecue. We're not trying to become a barbecue replacement, but if we can have consumers open up a bag and smell something that takes them back to a really good moment, we think that we could build a really powerful and emotive brand, which is really tough to do in food and beverage. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the foundation for what we're trying to build from a brand perspective. And when you get into your question, which is around the product, we tried everything to get that kind of magic between not only flavor and taste, but aroma. And you really can't get there by doing it any other way but smoking the product. And so we looked at smoking seasonings, we looked at the liquid smoke angle, which is what a lot of people do, and really doesn't taste that great. You kind of get that bitterness on the back end. And we ultimately decided that there are no shortcuts. If you're going to build an authentic barbecue brand, you got to smoke it. And so that's kind of what we did. And it was really in Mike's backyard for about 2.5 years, tinkering with all different kinds of small scale processes to smoke. And then ultimately kind of cracking the code, which is our secret sauce, and translating that into a scalable process that has the ability to produce and smoke millions of product a year, which is what we do today. Well,
Yeah.
we don't manufacture millions of pounds a year yet. Hopefully we'll get
Yeah.
there, but we have the ability to.
You're gonna get there. Um, I would love to know how you do it, and I know it's a proprietary process, and I'm imagining everything from, like just loading corn chips onto an actual smoker, or oh gosh, there's a contraption called the bacon bong, which, yeah, you can smoke pork belly with it allegedly, and it works a lot like the device that shares a name with. I don't know, maybe the next time in Dallas, we could sit down together and I'll buy you a Shiner Bock or a Lone Star, and you can tell me all your secrets, and I promise not to share. Let's talk a little bit about, you and your partner have spent a lot of time at some pretty, recognizable names, including between the two of you, you've supposedly spent nearly three decades at Frito-Lay alone. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how working for a high profile company like that prepared you to launch your own company, and then the kind of things that you didn't learn and during your tour of duty for the big company.
Yeah, well, I mean, besides kind of learning the ins and outs of snack food, I would say the biggest takeaways for me personally, and I can speak a little bit for Mike, um, it is just a wonderful training ground on how to become, at least in marketing at Frito-Lay, a good storyteller and kind of the nuts and bolts of brand marketing. I mean, I have nothing but incredible things to say about my time at Frito. I still have a lot of friends there. And a lot of people say that entrepreneurs should kind of take their swing if they're interested in starting a business when they're really young and don't have a lot of responsibility. I actually have a very opposite point of view. I don't think I could have gotten this company off the ground with some of the things that I learned, not only at Frito, but with my experiences at Yum and BSN Sports. And then I have a family, 4 kids, and they depend on me. So failure is kind of not an option when you've got that many people that depend
Sure.
on you. And so they've been a huge motivating factor for me and incredibly supportive, because it's a really hard thing to launch a brand. So I would say, my experiences at Frito outside of learning the snack world were really about leadership and storytelling. I mean, I think if you look at really successful brands, they all have really simple stories to tell. And it's when you get into the nuances of really needing to be somewhere in person to explain what you do that trips, I think, a lot of smaller brands up. And so our story is really simple. We smoke chips. Nobody else does. And we're taking on barbecue snacks in a really authentic way. And so a lot of, again, the things that I learned in my brand marketing days at Frito-Lay really helped me kind of build this brand in a very simple and easy to understand way, knowing you've only got 2 or 3 seconds to engage someone at the shelf, and knowing that I can't be in 30,000 different stores selling my product and sampling it every day. I think the power of partnering with a guy like Mike. Mike is one of the most foremost experts in chip R&D on the planet. He spent 22 years at Frito, an engineer by trade, wonderful guy. And I couldn't think of anyone better to embark on a journey to create a completely novel manufacturing process than Mike. And so with the two of us, I think it just gives us some really great experiences and maybe a leg up than your typical chip startup. which is proving to be the case as we kind of explain ourselves to retailers and distributors who are really interested in bringing us in.
Um, you talked a little bit earlier, touched upon the mad scientist work that you did, taking your idea from your brain to the bag and then the shelf. Could you talk a little bit more about the process from idea and to like product perfection, and then what you've done so far to get the product into the hands of hungry consumers like me?
Yeah, so it really started again with me taking a tray of corn chips and putting it into my backyard smoker. Now, knowing that was completely unscalable, really we tried to figure out how we could take it from the simple backyard concept to mass production. What I will say is that it's kind of like cooking a brisket. We make chips just like everybody else makes chips. We put our rub on them, then we run them through a huge smoker, and then we bag them. And so it sounds easy, but it was 3 years of science to get there. When you manufacture something with a living, breathing thing, which is live fire, we burn real hickory wood. There's a ton of variability. And as you know, Jenny, in this snack world, you can't afford a ton of variability from bag to bag. Someone will try you once. If it doesn't taste the same, if you're fortunate enough to get them to buy it again, then they won't do it again. And so we're really working on honing in on variability. We're still getting smarter with every batch, and hopefully, as we kind of go down the road, we'll hone it in just like a bag of your favorite potato chips is almost perfect every time.
Yeah, and not to editorialize too much, but they're good. I
I appreciate it.
before we hit record, I confessed to Jared here that the samples that they were nice enough to send, those corn chips disappeared in one sitting or about near to it. So yeah, it's definitely a unique process, but it comes through in a really unique taste. What's next for the company? You've been in consumers' hands for a couple of months. Do you have new products, working on expanding your reach, taking over the world? What do you got?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, for us, we're so brand new. I really wanted to keep it simple and just have a few SKUs with one size that I could kind of line price at retail. We're fortunate to have some incredible early retail partners. So we're in 350 plus stores across Texas,
Nice.
including Albertsons, Randall's, Tom Thumb Banners, HEB, Market Street, United Grocery Stores. We've got a couple other big ones in play that have reached out that we're kind of finalizing distribution agreements with.
Mhm.
And then what we're going to do as it relates to geography and how we're going to expand in other markets outside of Texas, it's kind of like following big barbecue markets around the country. And so when you think of Kansas City and St. Louis and parts of the Midwest like Michigan and Wisconsin,
Oh,
and
sure.
parts of the South like Atlanta and Louisiana, going into the Carolinas and Southern Virginia, and ultimately we'll get to Chicago and maybe even the coasts, which are starting to pick up on the barbecue culture a bit. We've got, we think, a lot of runway to go to folks that love barbecue, and luckily that's really everybody in the country. We've read a report that said 95% of Americans eat at least one barbecue flavored something once a week. And so that's it. As we think about product expansion, kind of where we'll go geographically as it relates to products. The cool part about our platform is we have literally smoked every salty snack on the planet,
Mhm.
and there's literally none that don't taste good. It did take us a little while to crack the code on pretzels because the smoke wasn't getting through your typical heart-shaped pretzel
Yeah.
or pretzel rod. And so we kind of went at it with pretzel pieces and think that's where we'll end up. And so for us, kind of the sky's the limit. We're going to innovate on substrates within salty snacks. We're going to innovate on rubs. We're going to do sweet, heat, spicy, regional. And then there's even a cool thing to do as it relates to wood types. And so we've smoked
Mhm.
our chips with every kind of wood. We landed on hickory for launch, but we've smoked with apple wood and cherry wood and bourbon oak. And so we're going to have a lot of fun there too. But again, that's kind of down the road right now. It's just around selling the 3 SKUs that we have in the store today. You asked me earlier what I didn't learn at Frito-Lay that I'm learning now as a new business owner. And you come to appreciate just how difficult it is once you're on shelf to get someone to buy you. We're seeing some good success, but I'll tell you, it's not as easy as selling a bag of nacho cheese Doritos when no one has ever heard of your brand. To get them to pull it, it's really all about packaging, price promotion, and ultimately word of mouth in the communities that you launch in. And that's why we're spending so much time this fall attending barbecue festivals and the State Fair of Texas and country music festivals, and really anywhere that we think barbecue loving audience is, we're going to give out product.
Yeah, well, it'll be fun to watch how you take off. So thank you for sharing your time before you get big and take over the world. Jared, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me, and big fan of how you guys cover the industry, and hopefully we'll have more to talk about in the months and years ahead.